These days, pretty much everyone takes photos every day, but there are less and less people who want to buy and carry a proper camera to take photos or videos. The younger generation would almost completely use their phone to capture all their photos and videos and share them on the internet immediately. Not many of them are even interested in getting a standalone camera, and there are many reasons for that. For example, the cameras are just too big and heavy. It takes too much time and effort to transfer the photos from the camera to the computer and edit them. The typical cameras that I love also have way too many buttons and dials for the average people to even understand how to use it. But today, we are looking at this brand new Lumix S9 full-frame camera. This is a super compact full-frame camera that is specially designed for younger content creators who usually just rely on their phone to do everything. This new Lumix S9 shares a lot of hardware and features with one of my favorite camera, the Lumix S5 II, including the image sensor, the autofocusing system, and pretty much all the photo and video capture features. And this camera is much smaller, lighter, and it also has a few unique designs to address the reasons why the younger content creators don't want to shoot with a proper camera. This includes the design of the body, some new features, and also a brand new smartphone app. Compared to the smartphones, it also offers huge improvement in terms of image quality, and they are just something the phone cameras cannot give you. But because of these changes and the very compact size, for traditional camera users, this Lumix S9 also has a few limitations and compromises when compared to the typical mirrorless cameras. So in this video, we're going to talk about all the important features and changes, and I will share with you a lot of my test results and real-world photos and videos and shooting experience with this camera. I will talk about all the pros and cons I found, but before we continue, I would like to say thank you to Panasonic for inviting me and flying me to Japan to attend the Global Lumix Summit and allow us to have early access to the camera over there. They have also provided a Lumix S9 as a long-term loan for me to take home and do more testing. They have not paid me any money, and this is not a sponsored video. I just want to make sure this is fully transparent to you before we start this review. Okay, so this new camera is called the Lumix S9, which kind of makes sense as the Lumix S1 are the big, heavy and professional cameras. The S5 are kind of slightly smaller mid-level camera, and now S9 is the smallest full-frame camera from Lumix. The way how they named the camera also leaves room for a future S7 to be added to the lineup. The Lumix S9 is a very small camera. It is a lot smaller than the Lumix S5 II or the Micro Four Thirds G9 II, which shares the same body. It's even smaller than my Fujifilm X-T3, and it's also noticeably smaller than the Sony A7CR and the A7C II. I won't call the Lumix S9 pocketable, but this is pretty much as small as you can get if you want a large sensor camera, especially one with a large full-frame sensor. But of course, the total size depends on the lens, which we'll talk about later on in this review. When I first pick up the camera, I immediately feel the weight difference between this and the other full-frame cameras that I use pretty much every day. So it's great, not just because it's easier to carry around, but it's also great if you want to do some handheld video recording like doing vlogging, as your arm won't get tired so quickly. One reason why this camera is so light is because the body has a more plastic construction. I don't mean the build quality is bad. If you are someone who buys this camera as your first mirrorless camera, you probably would wonder what am I talking about, because there's nothing wrong at all with the build quality of the Lumix S9. But if you are someone like me who shoot with a lot of the mid to high-end camera, then you will notice the difference in construction. For example, when you hold the camera and press the button, it just feels a bit more hollow, say compared to the Lumix S5 II. The Lumix S9 is not a weatherproof camera. Instead of using rubber cover to cover the USB and HDMI ports on the side to give you weather protection, it has a plastic door which doesn't provide much resistance to water or dust, but is much easier to open and close. I personally don't think weather resistance is that important for the camera's target users, and I'm sure the camera can survive a few drops of rain. The HDMI port is a micro HDMI port, not a full-size one. Usually I would complain about that, but again, for a camera like this, I doubt many people would use the HDMI port, so I think a micro HDMI port is okay. There's also a 3.5mm microphone jack on the opposite side of the camera. The single memory card slot is located at the bottom of the camera next to the battery. When I was working on this review, I suddenly noticed one thing. The Lumix S9's aesthetic design is quite similar to my Leica Q. It has the similar flat top design. There are not too many buttons or dials on the body. By the way, the Lumix S9 is also a bit smaller than the Leica Q. There are only two dials at the top of the camera. One is the mode dial and the other one is the main control dial. Looking at the top of the camera, apart from these two dials, there is only a shutter button, a video record button, and an exposure compensation button. That's all. There is something that looks like a horseshoe mount, but is actually just a cold shoe mount as the camera doesn't support camera flash. So the cold shoe mount is mainly for you to attach some accessories. For example, you can put a shotgun mic or put an LED light there. At the back of the camera, we only have the D-pad and 6 other buttons. The most special button is the LUT button at the top of the camera, which is a brand new button as part of the real-time LUT feature. We'll talk about this button and the real-time LUT feature separately very soon, as it is a very important part of the Lumix S9. All the buttons and controls are on the right side, so in theory, you can operate the camera with just one hand. However, I found I'm not too confident to hold the camera with just one hand. It's partially because the camera body has a completely flat design, so there's no extruded grip to give you more support. The front of the camera also has quite a smooth texture, which makes the camera feel slippery. These days, I don't usually use camera strap with my camera, but with this Lumix S9, I did put a camera strap on the camera just in case the camera suddenly falls from my hand. If you want to have a bit more support to the Lumix S9, SmallRig has released a L-shaped handle for this camera. So it adds a small grip to the front of the camera. The base of the camera now is ArcaSwiss compatible with this handle, and there are also 2 additional points for you to mount camera strap to the bottom of the camera. So if you also find the camera is a little bit slippery and not having enough support, definitely check out this handle from SmallRig. If you put the Lumix S9 next to the S5 II, you can easily see S9's design is just a lot simpler. One interesting thing is, Panasonic chose to keep the D-pad but not include a joystick at the back of the camera, while Fujifilm's X-T50, which I just reviewed recently, does the exact opposite thing. Fujifilm, they keep the joystick but they remove the D-pad. The target audience for the S9 and the Fujifilm X-T50 are quite different, so probably it doesn't really make too much sense to do some direct comparisons, but I just find it quite interesting with this opposite approach. This camera doesn't have the electronic viewfinder, and it only has a 3-angle tilty flippy screen. For the younger generation who are really used to just shoot with the phone screen, this shouldn't be a problem at all, and the S9's LCD screen is not a bad one. But I'm sure this is something the more traditional users may complain. When I first saw the S9, I thought the camera looks a bit weird. It almost looked like a prototype camera, and I was thinking, why there is no joystick, why there's no AF control switch, there really should be a rear control dial. But when I later on showed this camera to my daughter, she said something to me that makes me understand the design. She said, "My other cameras have way too many buttons on it. This camera is just much simpler and it looks a lot easier to use, so she liked it a lot more." And this is exactly what Lumix want to achieve. By only keeping the most essential controls on the camera and keep the size of the camera small, instead of just fitting everything that they could fit onto the camera, the Lumix S9 is just a lot more user-friendly to people who usually don't use a big mirrorless camera. Anyone can just pick up the camera and start shooting immediately. People can focus on capturing the things that they want to capture rather than focus on all those technical details that they don't really care about. The camera comes in a few different colors, from the traditional black and silver to the more special red, blue and green color. All the different color options look quite nice, and it's quite hard for me to pick a favorite color, but maybe let me know what is your favorite color, especially if you are planning to buy one yourself. I remember when Panasonic first showed me the camera, I saw how small the camera is. My first reaction was, oh no, does that mean the camera doesn't have the in-body image stabilizer, IBIS? Because it really doesn't look like there's any space for that. But then when I hold the camera, I can feel something is shaking inside. Then I was like, oh, that's great. Because something shaking inside means the camera has IBIS. So that is fantastic. And on a slightly related topic, because it is such a small camera, so it has no mechanical shutter at all. Now, while I'm a bit sad that the Lumix S9 doesn't have the mechanical shutter, but pretty much all the other compact full-frame cameras also don't have a mechanical shutter at all, like the Sigma FP, FPL or the Sony ZV-E1, or may only have a cut-down version EFC only shutter like the Sony A7CR or the A7C II. So I guess it's just a limitation that we have to accept if we want to have a very compact full-frame camera. But anyway, I'm just glad that we at least have the IBIS, otherwise it could be another G100, which is a very nice camera, but the lack of IBIS make that camera not really suitable for vlogging. And having a good IBIS system is really important, not just for photo, but also for video as well. I would say it's even more important for video than photo. While electronic image stabilization system is getting really good these days, and I'll show you what a good electronic image stabilization system can do very soon. But for the video footage to look nice and look natural, especially under low light, you still need to either have a good IBIS or optical image stabilization system to minimize the amount of camera shake first. Here is a side-by-side footage that I shot to show you what Lumix S9's IBIS can do compared to not having any image stabilization. I guess you can see S9's IBIS really make the video footage look a lot more stable. Even when I'm running, the video footage still look pretty stable. But my next question is, how is the performance of S9's IBIS system when compared to the excellent IBIS on the Lumix S5 II, which is probably the best video IBIS I have tested so far for a full-frame camera? So here is the side-by-side test I did. I have both the Lumix S5 II and the S9 mounted on a solid camera rig and recording these two videos at the same time. And both cameras have the IBIS enabled, but nothing more. And you can see the performance of the IBIS from these two cameras are pretty much the same. S9's IBIS works just as good as the S5 II, and that is excellent. But if that's not good enough and you want even smoother video, you can turn on the E-stabilization feature. The camera would now apply electronic image stabilization on top of IBIS by applying cropping and shifting the image around frame by frame. And as a result, you have even more stable footage. But one thing Panasonic does in additional to that is apply perspective correction as well. So what is perspective correction and what does it do? So when you're shooting video with IBIS, sometimes you may notice the corner may wobble a bit. And the reason why we have this wobble is because when the camera tilts up and down, when we are walking, that will introduce perspective distortion. The wider angle the lens is, the easier it is to introduce perspective distortion. So that's why the wobble or the warping at the corner is usually more noticeable when you are shooting with an ultra wide angle lens. So if you look at this side-by-side test, the left was shot with the Lumix S5 II just using IBIS, and the right is with the Lumix S9 using IBIS and E-step high. You can see the E-step or the E-stabilization has almost completely removed all the wobble by applying the perspective distortion correction in real time. Now, I said Lumix cameras IBIS is great. You may wonder why I say that. Here is another side-by-side test. This time I'm comparing the Lumix S9 with my Sony a7CR. Both are shooting with IBIS only. Even when I'm just walking, you can already see the video from the S9 is just much more stable. And the difference is even more noticeable when I start running. Now, if I turn on the active steady shot on the Sony, which means the Sony would apply electronic stabilization on top as well, and I enable the E-step standard on the S9, just standard, not high. When walking, the two cameras looks quite similar. The active steady shot from Sony did a pretty decent job in minimizing camera shake. But again, once I start running, the video from the S9 is just a lot more stable. And if I switch the E-stabilization to high on the S9, the video is even more steady. Even when I'm running, the video is still very smooth. However, the E-step high setting applies a 1.4 times crop, which is really quite big, so you will need to use a much wider lens to give you the same field of view if you enable the E-step high. Now, what about stabilization when shooting photos? Panasonic told me the CPR rating is 5 stops with IBIS only and 6.5 stops with dual IS2. As usual, I did my own tests. I shot a few hundred photos at different shutter speed with and without IBIS enabled. And then I check every single photo and see whether the photo is sharp or not. And here is the graph that I plot with all my results. So from this graph, I can see a 3 to 4 stop improvement when the IBIS is enabled. This is not the best ever photo IBIS result I got, but it is about the same as the result I got with the S5 II. So it seems even though the S9's body is really small, it doesn't actually sacrifice the IBIS performance when you compare to the Lumix S5 II. Panasonic introduced the new feature called Real-Time LUT when they released the Panasonic Lumix S5 II. LUT stands for Lookup Table. It is an industry standard file format for filmmakers to color grade their videos. But this real-time LUT feature basically allows you to color grade your photo or video easily using your own LUT file in camera. I had a lot of fun playing with this feature on the Lumix S5 II and later on the G9 II. I even did a few videos explaining what real-time LUT is and sharing some of the photos and videos I shot using the real-time LUT feature to color grade all these photos and video in camera. I've also created my own LUT to use it on the S5 II and the G9 II as well. But as much as I love this feature, it seems this feature is just a little bit hard for average user to fully enjoy it. Finding a suitable LUT takes a bit of time, especially for beginner users who don't really know where to find them. Setting up the LUT on the camera can be a bit confusing, and if you want to create your own LUT, it is even harder. So end up a lot of users don't really know how to use this feature, which I think is a bit of shame because this is pretty much Lumix equivalent to Fujifilm's super popular film simulation. But in my opinion, real-time LUT is even more flexible and powerful, as you can load and create any LUT you want to create any kind of look for your photos or video. You have virtually no limitation on how your photo or video could look like. So Panasonic has obviously aware of all this. So this time with the Lumix S9, they have made some huge improvements to this real-time LUT feature, and they have addressed pretty much all the issues that people found. They've also made some new feature and changes to make this real-time LUT feature even more powerful. The first changes is the new LUT button at the back of the camera. By pressing this button, it allows you to quickly switch to any of the LUT that you have installed on the camera. And the camera now also comes with free Creative LUT pre-installed, so you can start playing with this straight away when you receive the camera. The real-time LUT feature itself is also more flexible now. If you go into the menu, first you'll notice you can now adjust the intensity of the LUT. You can adjust between 10 to 100%. So if you find that the LUT you choose give you too strong effect, you want it to be more subtle, you can lower the strength of the LUT. You can also add grain effect, which is like adding noise. On the Lumix S5 II, you can do that, but only when you choose a black and white picture profile. I've talked about that in one of my previous videos. I really like the grain that I can add to the black and white photo, so I really want to add it to the color photo as well to give me that film look. So Panasonic has now did it with the Lumix S9. Not only that, you can choose 3 different strengths of grain, and the grain itself can also be either color or monochrome. The way how real-time LUT work is by applying the LUT file on top of the picture profile you choose on the camera. So on the Lumix S5 II, when you set it up, you need to make sure you choose the right base picture profile for your picture to look nice with the LUT applied. But now with the Lumix S9, the person who created the LUT can indicate what is the base picture profile with the LUT. So when you choose that LUT, the camera would automatically switch to the correct base picture profile and apply the LUT on top, and everything would look very nice. This automatic process makes it much easier to set up the real-time LUT on the camera. And another cool thing is, if you choose one of the My Photo style, you can select a total of 2 different LUTs and stack them together. And you can also individually adjust the opacity of each one. So why do you need 2 different LUTs? Well, there are many ways that you can use it. You can just do some mix and match and just try different LUTs together, a bit like creating a cocktail, and see if you can create some really nice effects. But another way you can use the 2 LUTs is you can use one of the LUT either as a color conversion or a color correction LUT as the base layer, and then apply your Creative LUT on top as the second LUT. So doing it this way, it gives you a lot more flexibility no matter what your Creative LUT was originally designed for. And you can play with different combinations and opacity, so you have a lot of power to fine-tune and adjust it to get the exact look you want. But all these changes that I just talked about is just part of the real-time LUT improvement that comes with the Lumix S9. The other part of the improvement comes from the brand new smartphone app called Lumix Lab. So with the Lumix S9, Panasonic has created a brand new smartphone app called Lumix Lab. This app has quite a few different features, and it is designed to make your camera easier to use, especially for the younger users who mainly create and consumes their photos and videos on their phone rather than using a computer. At the moment, the Lumix app provides 3 main features. The first one is for you to upload your photos and videos from the camera to your phone, so you can then upload the photos to social media or do whatever you want on the phone. Now, I understand photo and video transfer from the camera to phone is nothing special. The previous Lumix Sync app can do that as well. However, if you look at this example, I have transferred 19 JPEG file from the camera to the phone, and it only took 54 seconds. So on average, it's less than 3 seconds per JPEG file. And one thing I want to mention is, I was using the 2.4 GHz transmission because I was testing it in Japan, which they do not allow to use the faster 5 GHz transmission. So if I do it in 5 GHz, it would be even faster. And you can also do some filtering to select the type of the media you want to transfer, or using the rating if you have already rated the photo on your camera. There's also a auto transfer feature which allow the camera to automatically transfer the photos to the phone. However, when I try that, it seems to use up the camera's battery a lot faster, and also I have to keep the camera on, otherwise I have to reconnect to the phone when I turn it on again. And another thing I noticed is, getting the camera to connect to the phone appears to be much faster with this new app. When I use the Lumix Sync app, sometimes it could take quite a bit of time for the camera to connect to my smartphone, easily like half a minute or sometimes even longer, and it doesn't always connect as well. But now with this new app, I can connect the camera to my phone in just around 10 seconds. As people, including myself, are just getting less and less patience, waiting for 10 seconds to connect the phone to the camera is much better than having to wait for more than half a minute. The second main feature is that you can now download LUT easily through the app. If you click the download button, you can see a list of LUTs available for you to download to your phone. When I'm working on this review, Lumix is still setting up the app and adding new LUT files, but there are already dozens of LUTs available. And I believe they are going to add more and more LUTs in the future. Some of the LUTs are from Lumix themselves, and some are from various content creators around the world. You can search the LUT by type, by creator, or see what is trending. And once you click on a LUT, you can see a bit more details about the LUT, like the story behind it, what's the base photo style, and there's also a slider for you to see the effect of the LUT. But what's more interesting is, if you have transferred some photos from your camera to the phone, you can now choose that photo and see what it will look like with the LUT applied on top of your photo. However, the photo you choose should not have any LUT already applied, as otherwise the app seems to just apply the new LUT on top of the original LUT, and that will not be the result that you want to see. So once you find the LUT you want, you can just press download button and download the LUT to your phone. If you press the LUT tab at the bottom, then you can see the LUTs that you have on your phone. Now, if you want to install the LUT to your phone, you just need to tap on the LUT and select transfer to camera, select a slot on your camera, and that's all you need to do. You have now installed a new LUT on your camera and you have it all already set up. This is way easier than the original workflow that you have to find LUTs yourself, manually copy them to the SD card, and then install to your camera, and then you still have to set it up manually. If you already have some LUTs yourself, you can also install it through the app. For example, I've copied some of my LUTs to my Google Drive. I can then access them from the app, download them to the phone, and then I can either use it in the app or upload to my camera using the exact same workflow. This really makes the real-time LUT feature so much easier to use. And now the third main feature. If you are a content creator, you probably wouldn't just want to use someone else's LUT and apply it onto your photo or video. You will want to create your own style. So there are two things that you can do. First, once you copy your photo or video to the phone, you can start do some editing by selecting the media from the gallery. You can apply another LUT on top. You can do all those usual adjustments like color curve, split tone, brightness, and then you can save it as your edited photo. But what's even more cool is you can save your adjustment as your own LUT file. This way, you can create your LUT super easily just using the app, or you can just select an existing LUT, make some adjustments, and create your own LUT. Now, one thing you need to aware is, since LUT is a color lookup table that is applied to the whole photo, so some of the adjustments that you apply in the app, like vignette or noise reduction, do not transfer to the LUT file if you create a LUT file from the app. And one caveat I found is, while you can transfer raw files from the camera to the phone and see them on the phone, you cannot edit them in Lumix Lab. If you want to edit your raw files, you need to first use the in-camera editor on the Lumix S9 to convert the RAW to JPEG first. You could still apply LUT in camera and do some minor editing on your camera. Then you can transfer the JPEG from the camera to the phone. I personally would definitely like to see RAW editing feature added to the Lumix Lab in the future. But anyway, with all these changes together, the real-time LUT feature is now not only more powerful, but it's also much easier for anyone to set up and use. I can literally create my own LUT on the phone and have it saved and installed on the Lumix S9 within a minute and start taking photos using the new LUT. It's just so much easier and it's so fast. One thing I do want to mention is that when I'm testing the Lumix Lab before the Lumix S9 is released, there are definitely bugs and issues with the app, but because I was using a pre-release unfinished version, I do expect Lumix is going to fix up most of these issues by the time the Lumix S9 is available to the customers. The Lumix S9 uses a hybrid autofocus system that combines PDAF face detection and DFD contrast-based detection. It also uses the latest generation AI subject detection system that we recently see on the Lumix S5 II after the firmware 3.0 update. The camera can detect human, animal, both with eye detection. It can also detect cars and motorcycle as well. And as you have probably seen in my Lumix S5 II firmware 3.0 video, all the various subject detection works very well. In terms of continuous autofocus tracking performance, ever since Panasonic has included PDAF face detection to the S5 II, autofocus performance on all the latest Lumix cameras are excellent. Some people think Sony has the best autofocus system, but if you look at this side-by-side comparison with the Sony a7CR, I would say there is very little difference between these two cameras. Both cameras are using the default settings and both follow the subject very accurately and very smoothly. Sometimes one camera responds a little bit faster, but then some other times the other camera reacts faster. So overall, both cameras did a great job and there should not be any issues no matter which camera you use. Previously, with the Lumix S5 II, when you go above 30 frames per second when recording in Full HD in full frame mode, the camera will switch to DFD for autofocus, which is a bit slower. But this time with the S9, even when you're shooting Full HD 60 frames per second in full frame mode, you will still be using PDAF, so you have the much faster continuous autofocus. For photos, I have shot a few thousand photos over the last week.
under different kind of lighting condition and using different lenses, and I have no problem at all. The autofocus performance is very good for a camera at this price point.
Now, one of the big advantage of getting a camera like the Lumix S9 instead of using a phone or a fixed lens camera like the Fujifilm X100 is that you can change your lens. The Lumix S9 uses the L mount, so there are many first-party lenses available from a few different L mount alliance members, including Panasonic, Sigma, Leica, Samyang, etc. You have the Lumix S 20-60mm, which is my favorite kit lens, all the different Lumix f1.8 prime lenses, the ultra wide-angle lens, the telephoto lens, and that really compact 28-200 travel zoom lens. We also have a lot of other third-party lenses available, for example this Laowa 9mm lens, which is ridiculously wide angle, and you can also use lenses like this Sirui anamorphic lens to create video with cinematic look. Yes, the Lumix S9 has anamorphic discrete preview, which I was surprised as I really don't expect too many people will shoot anamorphic with the Lumix S9. But I guess since Panasonic has already created this feature for their higher-end cameras, so they may as well just include it with this camera as well. Even the video anamorphic image stabilization is available on the S9, so maybe you can use the S9 to build the smallest full-frame anamorphic setup. But one thing you may have noticed is most of these lenses that I just showed you are quite large for the extremely small S9 body. While there are some compact prime lenses from Sigma and a few manual focus lenses from third-party manufacturers, there is nothing from Panasonic themselves that is really compact. So Panasonic has just announced two new lenses with the Lumix S9. One is the 26mm f8 Pancake. It is a manual focus fixed aperture lens that I should have a review up on my channel by the time that you are watching this review. So go and watch the review after you finish this one. It is a fun lens and the price is very affordable as well. I use this lens quite a bit with the S9, shooting many different things, including street photography when I'm in Japan, which actually works really quite well, but at the same time, it's not a lens that I would recommend to beginners or anyone who is picking up a mirrorless camera for the first time because it is a manual focus lens. The other upcoming compact lens is the Lumix S 18-40mm f4.5-6.3. This lens is not available yet when I'm working on this review, so I can't comment too much about the image quality or share any shooting experience, but the really compact size, the focal length of this lens, especially its 18mm wide end, I almost thought it's an APS-C lens, but no, it's a full frame lens. It means it should be really suitable as the kit lens with the Lumix S9. This is the lens that I will recommend you to check out when it's available. And as usual, I will have a review of this lens on my channel when it's released. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you are enjoying this review so far, I would really appreciate if you can click the like button and maybe drop a quick comment below to support me so this video can perform better on YouTube. Thank you very much. Okay, now let's talk about the photo mode. The Lumix S9 uses the same full-frame 24MP sensor as the Lumix S5 II. I've tested this sensor quite a few times before, so this time I'm not going to test it again. So if you're interested to see some in-depth testing, go watch my Lumix S5 II review and you can see all the details. If you're someone coming from a smartphone, the full-frame sensor is much bigger. The biggest smartphone sensor these days is 1 inch, but even most of the flagship smartphones these days still use a sensor that is smaller than 1 inch as their main camera. So a full frame sensor is at least 7 times bigger than the main camera on a smartphone. And the bigger sensor size does give you better image quality, better low light performance. Photos shot at ISO 25600 using the Lumix S9 is still very decent quality, but you can go up to ISO 204,800 if you enable the extended ISO option. The photo shooting features available on the S9 is very similar to the S5 II. You can shoot full-size JPEG or RAW file up to 30 frames per second. You even have the pre-burst shooting, which was just recently added to the S5 II by the latest 3.0 firmware. With this pre-burst shooting feature, the camera would capture photo in the background when you half press the shutter button, and when you fully press the shutter button, the camera will save the last 20 or so photos just before you fully press the shutter button. This is great if you want to capture a special moment that is hard to predict. It can help you avoid capturing hundreds or even thousands of photos just because you are waiting for something to happen. One thing you need to aware is, since the Lumix S9 doesn't have a mechanical shutter, all the photos are captured using the electronic shutter, which means the photo could be affected by the limitations caused by the electronic shutter. One is flickering caused by some light sources such as fluorescent lights, and that would introduce bending in the photo. So Panasonic has added synchro scan setting for the photo mode, which allows you to fine-tune the shutter speed when you are shooting in M or S mode to minimize that effect. But I do really wonder if many of its target users would actually understand or use this feature. The other downside of the electronic shutter is you may see some rolling shutter effect, especially if you are panning the camera very quickly. The camera does apply some rolling shutter compensation correction to reduce the rolling shutter effect when you are shooting in the burst mode. I've shot a few thousands real-world photos using the Lumix S9 so far, and I have very minimal issues with the electronic shutter. The only time that I really noticed the problem was when I was taking photos on the Shinkansen, when the train was traveling at very high speed, and that was the time that I see some pretty noticeable rolling shutter effect. But apart from that, so far I really don't have too much issue with the electronic shutter. These limitations apply to all cameras that uses electronic shutter, so it's not just the Lumix S9. Even the cameras on your smartphone would also be more or less affected by this as well, as all the cameras on the smartphones also use electronic shutter. The camera also has the high resolution photo mode, which allows you to capture 96 megapixel photo by capturing multiple photos very quickly and merge them together in camera. The S9 also supports the new handheld high resolution mode, so you don't even need to use a tripod to shoot in high resolution mode. I believe the Lumix S5 II, S5 IIX and now the S9 are the only full-frame cameras in the market that support handheld high-resolution photo mode and also can generate the high-resolution photo in camera. By the way, I have created a video with some in-depth discussions about the high-resolution mode. I'll put a link below if you want to find out more about the benefits and limitations of the high-resolution mode. The Lumix S9 can shoot videos from Full HD resolution all the way up to 6K resolution in open gate mode. The 6K and 4K video from the S9 are very nice quality with minimal amount of artifacts. When shooting in Full HD resolution, the maximum frame rate is 120 frames per second with autofocus. For Full HD recording, you can go up to maximum 180 frames per second in S&Q mode. But you will lose autofocus and there's also a bit of cropping and drop in image quality. "4K can go up to 60 frames per second, but just like the S5 II, shooting 4K in any frame rate higher than 30 frames per second would have a 1.5 times crop. The 6K open gate mode is definitely a big draw card for video content creators, and it is a very unique feature that not many camera would offer, especially for a camera in this size and price. And it's special not just because of the 6K resolution. Basically, open gate mode means the video is recorded using the full sensor, so not just the full width but full height as well. So the output is in 3:2 aspect ratio format, which is quite a bit taller than the typical 16:9 ratio widescreen video. So the advantage of shooting in open gate 3:2 aspect ratio is that not only you can crop the video to create the 16:9 aspect ratio video easily, but if you want to create vertical video, you can crop it much easier compared to cropping from a 16:9 video. Since these days, we quite often need to create both the widescreen and vertical video at the same time, you can shoot both the widescreen and vertical video at the same time when you're recording in the open gate mode, and that will save you a lot of time so you don't have to reshoot the video twice. The camera also has the new MP4 Lite output option. This is especially designed for the open gate video recording because 6K open gate captures a lot of data. That is great for people who want to edit the video on computer to get the best quality, but the file is a little bit too large if you want to transfer and work on the phone, both for the processing and also for the storage size. So with this new MP4 Lite option, it allows you to capture video still using the full sensor, full width and full height, but the video is saved in a lower resolution. It is still 3840 by 2560, so it's not like a super low resolution. The file is saved in H.265 10-bit, but the bit rate is 50 megabit per second. So you still have the advantage of shooting in open gate mode, and it is still a 10-bit file, so you still have quite a bit of dynamic range for post-processing, but the file is just much smaller.
Lumix S9 has a new crop zoom and a new hybrid zoom feature. Crop zoom basically is a digital zoom that is designed for prime lenses. Hybrid zoom is designed for zoom lenses. It combines the optical zoom with digital zoom. While these two features are available for both photo and video mode, I feel it's most useful for video shooting as it allows you to get higher effective zoom by just recording using a smaller sensor area and not really losing any resolution. So if you're shooting 4K video, you get approximately 1.6 times reach. So for example, if you're shooting with a 28-200 lens, it becomes effectively a 312mm lens. And if you're shooting in Full HD resolution, then you can get approximately 3.1 times more reach, so your 28-200mm lens becomes a 28-623mm lens. There is an option called Effect at Wide Angle. If you enable it, then the digital zoom or cropping is applied gradually from the wide end. And if you disable it, then the cropping is not applied until you have zoomed in a bit. I myself prefer this option as it allows the camera to record using the full sensor around the wide angle end for a little bit longer, but no matter which option you choose, I find the crop zoom and the hybrid zoom are really useful when recording video as it provides you extra reach with the same lens without losing any resolution. I especially like the hybrid zoom as I find it's just so easy to use that I even forgot that I'm using this feature. By the way, the hybrid zoom can be used with any existing L-mount zoom lens, so you don't need to buy a new lens or don't even need new firmware to use this feature.
One thing I noticed pretty much immediately after I received the camera is that all the video recording mode has time limit. The time limit is 10 minutes for the 6K and 5.9K, 15 minutes for the 4K, Cinema 4K and 3.3K, 20 minutes for the 1080p Full HD. So it's not really a long limit. I'm not really surprised because with such a small body, there's no room to put an active cooling system. Passive cooling also wouldn't work that well with a small body. So like it or not, this is another compromise we have to make when we want to jam all this hardware into a tiny body and still do video recording. But I want to know how easy is it actually to overheat the camera. So I did some more tests. I set the camera to record video in 4K 25, 10-bit Vlog 420 MOV format. Room temperature was around 19 degrees Celsius, so 16.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I have the LCD screen flipped out as I want to measure the temperature of the back of the camera, but that does also help cool down a little bit more. However, the camera is also just sitting on the desk and not moving at all, which means heat would build up a little bit faster near the bottom half of the camera. The 4K 25 mode has a recording time limit of 15 minutes as I mentioned before. So what I did is, as soon as the camera has stopped recording because it hit the time limit, I will press the record button again so it virtually still record non-stop. So with this setup, when I start recording, I use a thermal imaging camera to measure the temperature of the back of the camera, and it was around 27 degrees Celsius, so around 80 degrees Fahrenheit when it started. The temperature increased slowly as the camera continued recording. So at the end, I managed to record 150 minutes 40 seconds total, and the temperature of the back of the camera reaches 42.4 degrees Celsius, so it's around 108 degrees Fahrenheit. There was no temperature warning sign displayed on the camera at all. The camera died because the battery died after this 2.5 hour recording. So I think that is pretty impressive. I did the same test again the following night. This time I record in 6K open gate mode. The room temperature was a little bit colder, so it was around 17 degrees Celsius. That's around 63 degrees Fahrenheit. The recording limit for 6K is 10 minutes per clip, and I did the same thing. I pressed the record button immediately when the camera reaches the recording limit. This time at around 41 minutes, the temperature warning sign appeared on the screen, and the back of the camera temperature reaches about 47 degrees Celsius or 117 degrees Fahrenheit. And the camera managed to record a total of 50 minutes of 6K video, and then it refused to record anymore because of the high temperature. Interestingly, when the camera overheated, I can still take photo and use some of the features of the camera, so it's not a complete shutdown of the camera. Now, all this overheat test was done in New Zealand, which is getting colder as we are in Southern Hemisphere and approaching winter. But even when I was using the camera in Japan, temperature was around mid-20 degrees and even approaching 30 degrees Celsius on some of the days, or around 86 degrees Fahrenheit. But the camera has no overheat issue at all, no matter I was taking photos or shooting video. The only time that I managed to overheat the camera was when I was doing some stress tests on an almost 30 degrees Celsius day, and the camera overheated after about 11 minutes of continuously shooting in 6K resolution under direct sunlight. So I think the camera's heat management is better than I expected. However, since the Lumix S9 is really a compact camera and it has no active cooling, so if you use this camera on a hot day like 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit or hotter, then I do expect you may run into overheating issue if you do long continuous video recording. This is really not a camera designed for long recording. Okay, the overheat test is a good segue for me to talk about battery life. The Lumix S9 uses the 2200 mAh BLK22 battery, which is the same battery as the Lumix S5, S5 II, G6, G9 II. I'm actually a little bit surprised because with the compact size body and it doesn't have an extruded grip, there really isn't too much space for the battery. For example, the Fujifilm X-T50 I just reviewed uses a smaller battery even though that camera has a larger grip. So I was completely expecting Panasonic would use a smaller battery for the Lumix S9. But of course, I'm not complaining as it's always good to have a decent sized battery, especially one that share with all the other latest popular Lumix cameras. So as you have just heard, I managed to get over 150 minutes of 4K video recording when I did my overheat test, which is really good. Seems to be even better than what I could get from the Lumix S5 II. And this is for video. For photos, the official CPER rating is 470 shots. This is better than Lumix S5 II's 370 shots rating. In real world, I can definitely get more than 470 photos from a single battery, even when I'm not doing a lot of burst shooting. So for the more casual shooters, one battery can probably last you a day. But if you do shoot a lot of photos and videos, then prepare one or I think at most 2 extra batteries and you should be okay for a full day of shooting. Remember, you can also charge your battery using the USB-C port on the camera. Just make sure you use a PD power supply which can output 9V 3A, then you can use the USB to power the camera as well. The Lumix S9 is a very focused camera. I don't mean the autofocus. Well, the autofocus works great as expected, just like the Lumix S5 II. What I really mean is, instead of trying to make a camera that is suitable for a wide range of users, Lumix has a very clear idea and focus about what this camera is designed for. And to achieve this goal, they have to make a lot of decisions to make this camera the ideal camera for their target group of users, which is content creators who create photos and short videos, people who would usually just use their phone to do everything, and those are also people that not really interested in picking up a mirrorless camera. So the goal is to create a camera that is as small and lightweight as possible, so those people will be happy to carry it and use it instead of their phone. The control interface has to be easy to learn, easy to use. There should be an easy workflow for users to get the photo and video onto their phone, and the photo and video has to look nice so they can easily upload to social media. The image quality has to be significantly better than what they can capture using their phone, because otherwise, why not just use the phone? I think Panasonic has achieved these goals with this Lumix S9. You have the same image quality as the Lumix S5 II as it uses the same full frame sensor. It is significantly smaller and lighter than the S5 II, so it's very easy to carry around, especially if you pair it with one of those upcoming super compact lenses. The simplified control is very easy to use even for people who has never used a proper mirrorless camera before, and the improved real-time LUT feature with the new Lumix Lab app together just make the real-time LUT feature so much easier to use, and that allows content creators to create photo and video with their own look and style, and they can also get their photos and videos to their phone quickly and easily. Having the open gate video recording mode is also excellent, as user can just record video once and then easily crop it for both widescreen and vertical output. It's something that you cannot do with your phone or even most cameras in the market. But to make this camera really attractive to this target group of users, Panasonic has to make sacrifices and choices, which means this Lumix S9 may not be exactly what traditional photographers want. Not having the mechanical shutter, not having an electronic viewfinder are two main things that could stop the traditional photographers from buying this camera. But the amount of compromises Panasonic has made is way less than what I expected. I was a bit worried that the camera may not have the IBIS, it may have a very small battery. The photo and video shooting capabilities may be greatly limited, or it may not have the new handheld high resolution mode or the pre-burst shooting. But no, Panasonic has actually kept all this for the Lumix S9. Could Panasonic add an electronic viewfinder or the mechanical shutter to the S9? Yes, they can, and maybe they can even make the grip a little bit more supportive as well. But all these changes will increase both the size and probably also the price of the camera, and the result camera is probably not any more attractive to its target group of users. To me, the biggest downside of the Lumix S9 is the relatively short time limit for video recording. Okay, 10 to 20 minutes recording limit is usually enough for most content creators shooting short form videos, even for vlogging. To be fair, I myself have pretty much never shot any single video clip that is more than 3 to 5 minutes. But if someone wants to put the camera on a tripod and then do some long talking head video or maybe a long interview, then 15 minutes for 4K or even 20 minutes for Full HD may still not be enough. You may have to restart the video recording a few times when you are shooting, which is doable but just a bit of pain. And from my testing, the camera can really record quite a long period of time continuously if the ambient temperature isn't too high. So I would really like to see a way to disable the recording limit completely, or at least increase it to 30 minutes. Yes, the camera may overheat if you use the camera in hot places, but pretty much any small camera in the market would overheat as well. Even some of them don't have any time restriction. I understand Panasonic are more conservative than most other companies, and that's one of the reasons why I love their products. But in my opinion, being a little bit more aggressive and put a longer time limit for the video recording is something that would probably benefit users than putting a shorter time limit. Now, while Panasonic is primarily targeting this camera towards content creator, I think this camera could also be a great travel camera because it's just so compact and lightweight. If I pair the Lumix S9 with the 28-200 lens, this could be really all I need to bring if I want a small setup that can cover wide focal length range and also can capture high quality photos and videos. And I could also just do all my editing and transfer photos and share on the social media easily when traveling without having to carry a laptop. Now, I believe some people will think the price of the Lumix S9 is a bit expensive because it's not that much cheaper than the Lumix S5 II and it's missing a few features like the electronic viewfinder. But don't forget, there are also some new features that is available on the S9 which cost money to develop, and after talking to the staff from Panasonic, I understand now that making a device smaller is always a lot harder than just removing this and that. So whether the price is right or not, I'll leave it to you to consider.
And Panasonic also has to see whether they can convince their target group of users, people who have never bought a mirrorless camera before, to spend this amount of money to buy their first mirrorless camera.
The closest competitor in the market to the Lumix S9 will be Sony's ZV-E1, which is a very similar camera in a lot of ways. Both cameras are full frame, extremely compact, designed for hybrid shooters, has IBIS, has a tilty flippy screen. Both cameras shares a lot of same components with the more expensive cameras in their own lineup. But both cameras also don't have EVF or mechanical shutter, and both cameras would overheat if used under hot condition, even though Sony doesn't set a recording limit for the ZV-E1. I may do a full comparison of these two cameras in the future, but right now, the way I see it is the ZV-E1 is targeting the more traditional content creators, people who care a bit more about specs. The ZV-E1 is also a bit more video focus using a 12 megapixel sensor that is primarily designed for video. Because of that, the ZVE1 can do 4K 120 video recording, while the Panasonic can only do that in Full HD resolution. So if you are someone who like to shoot a lot of slow motion video, the Sony ZVE1 is probably more attractive. Sony's autofocus is also super reliable and works really well under pretty much any kind of situation. Having said that, Lumix S9's autofocus seems to be really good from my own testing as well. Another thing is, the body of the Sony ZVE1 is weatherproof, while the Lumix isn't. On the other hand, the Lumix S9 is more designed for content creator who has never used a mirrorless camera before, people who don't know or care too much about the spec details, people who care more about having a camera that is easy to use, easy to get the photos, looks nice and easy to transfer to the phone quickly. While S9's 24 megapixel sensor cannot do 4K 120 video recording, the 24 megapixel photo is higher resolution than the 12 megapixel photo from the Sony. And you also have the handheld high resolution photo mode that gives you 96 megapixel photo. It also has a pre-burst shooting and a few other features that makes the Lumix a better photo camera than the Sony. Lumix S9's body, especially with its different color options, should also be more attractive than Sony's more traditional design as well. So while these two cameras, they may look like they are quite similar, but they actually are targeting quite different group of users. So it really depends on what type of user you are. One of these cameras may be more suitable than the other. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do enjoy this video, I would really appreciate if you can click the like button or drop a comment below to support me.
This is the pancake one.
Oh, it's the same thing.
Look at the size of it. Wow.
That's good.
Look at this.
Mini.
Yeah, mini.
That's not bad. You see that? And that's that. And it's full frame, so it's a 42.8.
How much you spend?
About £750,000.
How much yen?
How much did I really spend?
Yen? How many yen? How much yen?
43,000 yen.
Very well. Okay.
So just over £200.
So you could buy this, or you could buy 1/4 of this.
198,000 yen.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is. Do you know what it is?
I don't know, but I want it now. Wouldn't you want that on your desk?
Not 498
yen.